Welcome back to The Lower Shelf. I'm Autumn, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. In this week's episode, Dr. John Shultz and Jacob Hanson host Matthew Take of Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resources System. In this episode, they discuss how churches, parents, and schools can work together to effectively support children with diverse behavioral and developmental needs. Now, let's get into the episode.
Hello, my name is John Shultz, and I serve as a pastor of First Baptist Church Macclenny in Macclenny, Florida, and I want to welcome you to another episode of The Lower Shelf, where complex problems meet common sense answers. Co-hosting with me is Jacob Hanson. Jacob is our next-gen pastor at FBC. Today we have a special guest. Matthew Take is here, and Matthew is part of an initiative in the state of Florida, and it's titled Fiddlers. And I'm going to let him unpack that for us. Matthew, why don't you just take a few moments and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you are connected to this initiative?
Oh, perfect. Okay, so my name is Matthew, and Fiddlers stands for the Florida Diagnostic Learning Resources System, and we are a direct arm of the Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services with the state. So we are vetted by the state, and there are 18 of our centers around, so we are all around Florida. So a very wide network, but it's a pleasure to be able to work in this network. I've been in education 19 years, so
Wow.
I'm not new.
Yeah.
So I've seen trends.
Sure.
I've worked with kids with the most significant cognitive disabilities and parents and families.
Well, yeah, I think that for us as well in the volunteer world in the church, we see in small parts what a lot of you in the educational world, especially elementary education, see a lot of. I know we can't unpack the area of the flip it model in this whole process, but I'd love to be able for you to give us kind of the cliff notes of the sections and how this acrostic came to be and maybe how it could help parents in the home. If you could do that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So FLIP IT is an acronym, and it stands for Feelings, Limits, Inquiries, and Prompts. And it is a behavior model that focuses on feelings first, because a lot of our behaviors are feelings that are not resolved. So we see those behaviors come out in different ways. And so being able to honor those feelings, address them, and then start saying, well, I see you are having a difficult time, you are yelling and screaming. Then we put in a limit that says, okay, here's how you're supposed to operate in this.
And that's not the teacher that's yelling and screaming.
Let's hope not. But, we have to flip ourselves as well.
That's
because
right.
We are human,
Yep.
living this human experience. But, yes, so we have those limits in there, which are the rules and loving expectations. And then we ask those probing questions, open-ended questions, not yes or no, because you will get exactly the answer probably that you don't want if it's a yes and no. Would you like to go to the other room? No. So with it closed, right. So you're kind of stuck in that scenario.
Yeah.
And then you prompt, because we want our kids to be critical thinkers. We want them to be able to problem solve themselves. And this is a really good way to start prompting that early childhood.
Yeah. Jacob, why don't you pick up?
Yeah. So, Matthew, you just talked about problem solving. One of the things I do here, I serve as the next-gen pastor, so I work with a wide swath of student ages, really kind of like elementary through high school, primarily working with middle school and high school students and their families. But there are a number of students who struggle with different coping strategies, behavioral, mechanisms, kind of ways that they want to suppress that or they express that type of thing. And we have leaders. Some of our leaders, by God's grace, they are in the school system. They are educators or they're around education. And so they receive this type of training often, and they see different trainings in the school system. But we have other leaders in a different category. They're not. And so they may feel ill-equipped, or their families of these students may feel ill-equipped. So what are some of the ways that you think Flip It helps kind of the classroom setting, and then what are some connections, between how we as a church and how schools in the education system can use it, and how it would benefit families at home as well?
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that just for a second. Just think about us. We have them, as I said before, we have them for about an hour to 2 hours on a Sunday, and then we may have them for an hour to 2 hours on a lot of Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So the exposure that we have for them is not anywhere near as great, but the impact can be really can be the same. It really can.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the joy of being in this profession, being a fiddler, trainer, and human resource developer, we are able to adjust to whatever setting and whatever is needed. So if it is that short amount of time, then we can get in and get out and give you the tools that are needed. We could do follow-ups. We can, look at some of the students, observe. So it's an amazing job, and we get in the trenches and work with people who need it. And then you were saying about the way Flip It is designed is, yes, it's more of an earlier childhood lens, but in all actuality, it has worked with my own 18-year-old. So I feel like because feelings are valid, we don't know what to do with some of them, and they come out in some of the most inappropriate ways of yelling, screaming, but I may just be frustrated, I may be angry. Just getting people to talk about and identifying those emotions, and then coming up with just some creative solutions on how to get the mad out, or to, I may be cussing and having a really hard time. It's not appropriate. So we put in those limits, which is that L part of it.
Yeah.
And then what are some other ways that we can get this mad out or get this frustration out? And then that's where we start prompting in that last step of, okay, what about getting up and jumping up and down? Or there has to be a way to get out these emotions that are so chaotic sometimes.
Sure. Can I explore that a little deeper real quick?
You bet.
Yeah. So when we think about, particularly, like holding to a Christian worldview, we understand, that we're people, and we act based on what's inside. What is inside will come out. And I think that's kind of what you're driving at, that you talked about cussing or different expressions of behavior. That's not the problem. That's a symptom of the problem. So can you kind of explore that a little deeper in terms of feelings and what that looks like, and how we are whole person people?
Yeah, which is, we are multifaceted, aren't we? Yes, based on our own. I like to say that even within each culture, there's subcultures and there's sub-family cultures. We have our own traditions, and sometimes our experiences in life are not as much as someone else. And maybe the way I have learned to express my anger is cussing, hitting, based on whatever.
Maybe even the model they've seen by the parents or the caregiver.
Maybe, or a grandparent. Sometimes we have multi-generation households, and we know what we know based on our experiences, right or wrong. And this program allows us to not only flip they like to use a lot of puns with flip. So flip in and flip out, and we can flip our kids, but we're not actually physically flipping them, but we are more.
Let's hope not.
Let's not do that.
Lawsuits coming.
Yeah, please no. I'm too old to flip like that. So. But it really is going through those creative solutions to get them to a point where, okay, I am feeling angry. What you're seeing is anger coming from me. I can help to identify that in myself. We use calm words here, or in church we do X, Y, and Z. This is our rule and expectation, that we keep our hands to ourselves.
Sure.
We use kind words, and then inquiry, what else could we do to get our mad out? And if nobody can come up with that creative solution, that's where that prompting step comes right on in.
Got it.
Now, this can take a minute. It can take maybe 5 minutes. So the more proficient we get at being able to identify those behaviors and then come up with those creative solutions, the faster it is. It doesn't take forever to do this. Because I've had that in a lot of trainings. Teachers say, or parents, I don't have that time.
Yeah.
Which we don't. We don't have a lot of time in this world anymore because everything seems so fast-paced.
Wow.
But this doesn't have to be that long. It can be very quick. We identify it. We provide those limits. These are the rules. We don't do that in this world. And then come up with that. What else could we do? And then create up with those prompts that are just creative solutions to some of the behaviors.
Yeah. And what I remember about it and reading up on it as well, and obviously I'm not proficient, but the ability of saying they can be sequential, but they're not always sequential because it depends on what you're dealing with where I jump into this. Is that a right observation?
100%, because and in the training we talk about safe and unsafe behaviors. If it is a truly unsafe behavior, kid is running away, eloping, we want to ensure their safety first, and then we can still flip later on, right?
Cool.
So, yes, there are some needs that absolutely we must make sure everybody is safe first and foremost.
Sure.
Yeah.
In those environments, the ability of being able also to have tools in your toolbox for volunteers especially really adds a lot of confidence and desire to be able to serve, because it is frightening for a volunteer to be able to come in who doesn't have an education background, and all of a sudden I have a child that may be somewhere on the spectrum or not. They're just being defiant in the classroom. I can tell you that it is hard to get them to come back in the classroom again to be a volunteer because there is no legitimate paycheck other than, they know they're doing this for the Lord and they know that they love serving. But boy, if they walk in and there is a complete lack of structure and control, it's hard to get people to come back into that, and I don't blame them. I really don't.
No, absolutely. And life is tough. And then we add all the layers to it and differing abilities of our kiddos. We may not be equipped for that certain situation, but this is a program that really could
flip it.
We can flip them around and yes, flip in, flip out, but on all sorts of behaviors. And whether it's a more grandiose outwardly expression of anger or frustration, but it's also some of those behaviors that are flipping in, which can sometimes be
Give me
more
an example of
dangerous.
that.
Maybe like hiding under a desk,
Okay.
or just being forlorn, or you know in your gut that something is going on, but they're not expressing anything outwardly.
Got it.
Like, just some of those more challenging behaviors that get more attention initially, right?
Yeah.
So kid who's running away, you do want to make sure that they're safe, but also the kid hiding under a table who is pulling apart from the group. Those are some behaviors that we also need to think about.
Sure.
And they can be flipped as well because, I see you're frustrated, or you may be sad, or you may not want to participate, and then give some creative solutions on and some prompting of what could happen. We want everybody to be included.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
want everybody.
Yeah. And I think that's where both training and pre-planning help a lot, is once I equip volunteers or people who interact with children with the skills, then they're pre-planning of what do I do if this happens. The more they do it, the more the skill set can be revived to be able to pull it out. And it's almost effortless to include as many as you can in the exercise, the event, the activity, or whatever it is that you're doing. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree, and particularly since I've been trained in this approach, it's easier to come up with creative solutions, and it's just part of your word salad that you're able to, your vernacular, what comes out in an appropriate way, and finding those creative solutions that may have worked for you, may have worked for another kid. So yes, it is seeing more and doing more with this program. But also this program comes up with like sentence stems at the first part of each of the subsections, so the flip, so feelings, whatever it may be that they're experiencing, it kind of, you fill in the blank with that emotion.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then it kind of gives you that script to go by until you're ready to fly on your own.
Okay.
Right? So kind of gives you those
I remember
scaffolds. Yeah, which I loved that when I was learning, because it is kind of hard to come up with some of those pieces.
Yeah.
When you're trying to handle, catastrophic
Right.
events happening
In the
in the
moment.
classroom, plus
Right.
other students in the classroom, you can't always stop to intervene every single time something happens. So it becomes just part of your vocabulary.
Yeah, that's cool. I know that helping adults and children of all ages discover limits and boundaries and stuff like that in their behavior is vital, because they eventually grow up to be adults, and the more intervention that we can have along the way, it helps them to mature and to be included rather than excluded in particular societal groups. And operating inside of guardrails is stuff we all have to do. How can we use something like this to be able to help our parents or grandparents, because honestly we have a lot of grandparent raising homes out here, I know it's not just out here. I know that there are a lot of grandparent raising homes in a variety of areas, but we have a lot of that they're the primary, that are maybe picking the kids up after school, and they're the ones that are kind of the landing place for everybody. Eventually I'll have a parent that comes home from work or whatever, or not. And so how can we lean into them as well?
Well, the great thing about this program is that it is teaching our kids to be resilient and to be critical thinkers and to develop these skills, because many people may not have them based on whatever experiences they've had in life. And this kind of helps to fill in some of those gaps and to learn different ways to address the situation. But absolutely, we do have a lot of multi-generational households.
Sure.
And people who, are just kind of filling in for parents and family members just to get the kids' needs met and home and taken care of and fed. And then you start the whole day over again the
Sure.
next day, right?
Yeah, you do.
So that's what the joy of this program is that you're able to kind of fill in some of those gaps and provide some of that critical thinking for the students so they're able to do it themselves.
Cool.
Sure. Yeah. So Matthew, you speak of parents, multi-generational families, and kind of before we started recording, some of the things we were talking about were terms like, I'm quoting here, helicopter parenting, and parents who can really frustrate early elementary age as they grow into middle school and high school students. The ability for children and their kids to develop critical thinking skills, to develop problem-solving skills, conflict management ability. So can you kind of lean into and speak to how parents in that role can frustrate that, and how Flip It really can help equip them to equip their kids and their students to have those skills?
Right, absolutely. I think it's well-meaning. We do everything with the best of our ability as human beings, and
Sure.
we are flawed beings, and we have that independent thought, which can get us in trouble. But at the same time, we are able to help our create. It would be better. Okay, let me see how I'm going to phrase this. So it's well-meaning for our parents who are helicopter parents.
Sure.
But there's also another
Sure.
term that they're using now, snowplow parents. They're moving all of the issues out of the way so the kids aren't really challenged with critical thinking and problem solving in a variety of situations, as we've seen before. And with the increased screen time of a lot of our kiddos, they're not experiencing some of this healthy discourse that happens in a school and when you're working with other human beings, right? If you're in isolation all the time, we're not seeing them develop these skills. So this program can help that by providing some of those scaffolds in there for the kiddos when they're working on some of these harder pieces that I may be frustrated and I want to get my mad out, but it has to be done in an appropriate way.
Sure.
But you know what? Maybe the next time I will be less angry and I'll start learning strategies in myself to kind of employ those for a variety of kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I think that we're focusing a lot on Flip It right here, but man, there are so many other tools I think that you guys are able to provide other than Flip It, especially for volunteers and in the community. I love our initial conversation that we had together before we started on how the ability of putting together processes for both the school and the community, the parents and the school, because that's where the kids live. They live in both worlds. And so we talked as well about the number of kids that you see that are in a variety of areas learning wise. And, this kind of a process of being able to have targeted types of training. And I'm hopeful that in the fall of this year that we can offer a targeted type training process. Tell me, and this wasn't on the script, so this is an add-in.
No.
And tell me how you would think something like that would work. Like we did something maybe a Friday night and a Saturday morning. We did a Friday night where we provided a dinner and we did a couple hours worth of training there, and then maybe we did 9 to noon the next day. Those in that 5 hours of gathering together, and I know I'm putting you on the spot for this, and this is one that I didn't give them, by the way. But what would that look like? Can you give me just a general 30,000-foot view of what that may look like?
30,000. Wow, that's a lot. What we're able to do inside of our network is meet the needs of our schools, of our parents, and our communities. So it can look many different ways.
Okay.
We're not permitted to do a lot of food stuff.
No.
We are there to provide those trainings. That's something that we can do. And it could be 45 minutes, it could be an hour multiple times, or it can be a 6-hour training. Like, we are able to meet the unique needs of our communities, and that's one of the joys of being in this field.
So I'm just kind of pulling on that a little bit. Actually, probably, and I can't remember, was Flip It 2 hours out at Legacy, or was it longer than that? Do you remember?
I think it was about 2 hours.
I think it was about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So actually, if we did something along that line, we could either offer it twice, or we could offer some sort of Flip It type event, and then we may have another targeted type of thing at another time, and things along that line to work together with you and others in your department area. Because I just think, as I shared before, I think it's a win-win. I think the child wins, but both the community wins, the school wins, all of those kinds of things together in this whole process.
Absolutely.
I am thankful you were able to drive all the way out to this megatropolis of Macclenny.
That's right.
And also want our listeners to know that I said before, we're going to try and get a group out here sometime in the fall. Jacob, I know that you're excited to have this kind of a conversation today, but why don't you do the thing and ask any questions you want, and then I'll eventually take us out. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah. No, Matthew, thank you so much for being here today. I really do think, our listeners and parents and families are going to feel more equipped, and it almost kind of whets the appetite, for future things. I got to be honest with you. I think we could spend a long time talking about things like this. And so it was just a short, brief thing. And thank you so much for being here today. I know our families, even our group leaders and our teachers, man, they're just going to be encouraged by the things you've shared, and look forward to hopefully some training in the fall. I'll call that the Flip It Freestyle. How about that?
That's right. Yeah, we can flip it freestyle. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I like
can do that.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to be able to help and do what we need to do for
Me too.
our kids, our parents, families, because we're all in this together.
Yeah, I think that the more we can partner together, the better it is for everybody. I know that the ability for us as a church to be able to say that our guiding principles and our worldview drive the behavior that we're seeing, but we can all say that we learn from each other, and the ability of saying, I'm a human being that is made in the image of God, and I have the ability of being able to be infinitely valuable to him, and our desire is to be able to help them to be the boy or the girl, the young adult, the eventual leader that comes into a community that's able to shape a generation that it has a major impact. And I think that all adds together in that. I just do. Anything you would add to this, and I'll take us out, Matthew.
I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and we are, by nature, we are social beings, and always joke around because in my 40s, I'm like, I always say I have a village that helps me, and it's true.
Yep.
We all need each other.
Yep. We do.
Yes, we're social beings, and we can get through this.
Cool. Well, I'm excited for today's interview. I also want to give you a little leaker on something. I'm trying to get Bob Bumgardner out here, who's a lead missional strategist for First Coast Churches in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to ask Bob to come and share with all of our listeners the exciting work that First Coast Churches does. and how that the First Coast Churches connects to Florida Baptist Convention. And then we can have some fun as we approach the convention, how it all kind of connects together, because I think that there's a lot of assumptions of knowledge, but really connecting the dots together to see how do the churches connect together, because sometimes we're used to more of an ecclesiastical hierarchy, and it'd be fun to unpack those kinds of things, especially because the Southern Baptist Convention is this year in Orlando, Florida. So it's kind of cool to be able to pull those things together, and we'll have a fun conversation. Again, I want to thank you for driving out and being with us today. And really, I think this was another one of those conversations I think we'll have a lot of people that will listen to and look forward to our time of training. I want to thank you all who will listen to this episode. Share it out, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of The Lower Shelf.
We hope today's episode has encouraged you in your walk with Christ. The Lower Shelf is a ministry of First Baptist Church of Macclenny. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To learn more about First Baptist Church of Macclenny, visit fbcmac.com, and you can also follow our ministry on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for spending time with us on The Lower Shelf.